We all know that while everything in life may be uncertain, death is the only certainty. But a girl cheats certain death and ends up saving many lives. However, this act breaks the laws of nature, and soon a deadly curse begins. A curse so strong, it doesn't just destroy those people, but also their families. Still, the girl refuses to give up and enters a dangerous game against death itself. But will she succeed in stopping death's plan? Or will all her efforts be crushed under the weight of nature's rules? To find out, let's dive into the explanation of the chilling horror thriller, Final Destination. Paul and Irish, a couple, were driving together. Paul had tied a cloth over Irish's eyes. He wanted to surprise her. Finally, Paul stopped the car in front of the city's tallest tower, the Sky View. As they stepped out, he removed the blindfold from Irish's eyes. The moment she opened them, she was shocked. Today was the tower's grand opening, and Paul had brought her here as a surprise. Excited and curious, Irish was eager to go inside. They first took some photos together. Then, they stepped toward the elevator. The elevator was already overloaded, but the operator still invited them in. So Paul and Irish also got in. Irish was feeling a bit uneasy. The elevator operator told them the tower's top floor was 494 feet high. It was made of steel and could handle up to 1,000 tons of weight. But what startled Irish was that this tower had opened 5 months earlier than originally scheduled. Still, they went ahead. Paul took Irish to the top floor restaurant. He claimed he had a reservation, but the staff said there was no reservation under Paul's name, so they refused to give them a table. Paul was upset, but Irish comforted him, saying, "Just being with you is enough for me." She picked up a rose from a nearby stand and tucked it into Paul's suit pocket, but the rose's thorn pricked her finger, and blood came out. Still, they didn't think much of it, not knowing this was the first sign of doom. Paul and Irish then walked over to the glass wall and looked down. From that height, Irish felt dizzy and nauseous. She ran off toward the restroom but couldn't make it. She stopped near a dustbin. That's when a girl noticed her. She could tell from Irish's condition she was pregnant. The girl asked how far along she was. Irish replied, "I'm not sure, maybe 2 months." Back in the tower, the party was in full swing. A bartender tried opening a champagne bottle. The cork shot upward and hit a chandelier. A heavy, sharp piece of the chandelier broke off and hit the glass floor. It caused a crack, but no one noticed. Soon, Irish felt better. Paul took her to the rooftop, and there, he pulled out a ring and proposed to her. Irish said yes and told him about the pregnancy. Paul was thrilled. Nearby, a young boy was standing. He playfully tossed a coin off the rooftop. But due to the wind pressure, it flew into an air conditioning vent and got stuck in the fan. That one small mistake was about to cost them everything. Paul and Irish went back down to the disco floor. They started dancing with everyone. Meanwhile, the jammed fan motor overheated. The coin was finally dislodged, hitting a gas pipe. The pipe burst and gas began leaking. Remember, the tower had been rushed to open. It wasn't structurally ready. Add to that, the cracked glass floor and too many visitors. With all the dancing and vibrations, the floor couldn't take it anymore. The crack widened, and the glass gave way. People started falling through it. Paul also fell and died. Chaos broke out. In the kitchen, a woman caught on fire. Panicking, she ran straight toward the leaking gas. The fire ignited the gas, causing a massive explosion. Flames spread across the entire floor. People rushed to escape using the emergency stairs, but those stairs collapsed too. Irish and a few survivors ran for the elevator. As it was about to leave, an old man pushed Irish out of the way and jumped in, but the lift was already overloaded. It couldn't hold so much weight. The elevator crashed and everyone inside died. Some people were still trying to survive, but the tower's weight was now unbalanced. It tilted dangerously to one side. Everyone tried their best to stay steady. The tower briefly stabilized until that cursed coin fell again. It dropped onto a grand piano. That was the final nail in the coffin. The piano rolled down the slanted floor and fell off the edge, landing directly on that same kid who had thrown the coin. As the boy was crushed to death, the cursed coin rolled off the piano and finally dropped into water. After everyone else had perished, only Irish and a young boy were still alive on the top floor. Irish tried to find a way out with the child, but fate spared them no more. The tower cracked apart and they too plunged down. At the last instant, Irish's finger got caught between two nails because of the ring Paul had given her. But even that couldn't save them. She and the boy smashed onto the lower railing and died. A girl named Stephanie jolted awake in her classroom, screaming. She'd just witnessed the entire disaster in a dream. She had dozed off during class, and the whole catastrophe had played out in her nightmare. That night, she saw the same vision again and screamed once more. Her roommate, now annoyed, complained. Stephanie's nightmares had been waking her for days. Stephanie explained that the people she saw were actually her grandparents, Paul and Irish. But she had no idea why these horrifying dreams kept repeating. The roommate advised her, "Go home, talk to your family, meet your grandma. Maybe you'll learn what's really behind these dreams." So the next day, Stephanie went home. She lived with her father, Martin, and little brother, Charlie. Her mother had left them years ago. Martin was thrilled to see his daughter. Charlie happened to be heading to their Uncle Howard's house, so Stephanie went along. Only Howard knew where Grandma Irish was. At their uncle's, the first faces they saw were cousins, Eric, Bobby, and Julia. In the kitchen, they met Aunt Brenda. Stephanie asked to see her uncle. Brenda called Howard in from outside. When Stephanie asked about her grandmother, Howard tried to dodge the question. She told him she'd been having relentless nightmares centered on Irish and had to see her. Howard admitted that after Paul's death, Irish lost her mind, spoke bizarre things, and the family kept their distance. Still, Irish kept mailing them disturbing letters, so they cut off contact entirely. He warned, "Irish is dangerous. Better you stay away." Stephanie pleaded until he finally showed her where the letters were stored. Inside one envelope, she found the very photograph from her dream, the snapshot Irish had taken at the tower. Shaken, Stephanie set off for the address on the letter. Irish's house lay deep in the woods at the mountain's base, isolated, with warning signs telling strangers to keep out. In front of the gate, a CCTV camera glared down. Stephanie identified herself, and Irish buzzed her in, on one condition. She must leave her phone, keys, and purse in a lockbox. Stephanie obeyed, the gate opened, and she stepped inside. Irish was overjoyed to see her granddaughter and asked about Stephanie's mother. Stephanie said her mother had abandoned them when she was little. Irish, saddened, asked why she'd come. Stephanie described the nightmare. Irish replied, "Everything you saw is real." On the day they visited Skyview, those exact disasters were about to occur, but Irish had foreseen them. When Paul took her to the roof to propose, she had a vivid vision of the future. First, she stopped the little boy from tossing the coin, snatching it from him. Then she raced to the disco floor, grabbed the mic, and warned everyone. If they didn't stop dancing, the floor would collapse. People looked down, saw the cracks, and scrambled away, escaping in time. By preventing so many certain deaths, Irish had broken nature's design. A death curse fell upon all of them and their families. One by one, every survivor of the tower later died. Those who'd had children afterward, their children, and the generations after also died. Because, as Irish put it, by nature's rules, they were never meant to be born. As Irish explained this, a magnifying glass accidentally slid in front of a high-watt lamp. Sunlight focused through the glass onto a rope. It began to smolder. Irish noticed just in time and moved the glass away. "That's how death keeps hunting me," she told Stephanie. She had spent 20 years playing cat and mouse with it, never setting foot outside this house. Paul eventually died of cancer. Irish believes every child descended from her, and Paul carries the curse. If they're not cautious, they'll all die. She keeps a diary listing every possible way death might come. Hearing this, Stephanie thought the old woman must be crazy, maybe even dangerous. She stood to leave, but Irish grabbed her arm. Stephanie yanked free and walked outside. Irish called after her, "At least take my book. It can help you fight death." Stephanie refused to believe her. So Irish stepped outside, pressed the book into Stephanie's hands, and told her to stand back. "I haven't lied," Irish said. "You'll see proof right now." Wind suddenly began to blow. On top of Irish's house, there was an iron compass used for direction. The wind knocked it loose, and it came crashing down right onto a gas cylinder kept on the rooftop. Due to the pressure from the gas, the compass launched like an arrow, flying straight through Irish's face and skull. It was horrifying. What was even more shocking was Irish had already written about this exact kind of death in her book, Under the Possible Causes of Death. Stephanie saw the incident happen in front of her eyes. She was frozen in disbelief, speechless. A funeral was arranged for Irish. Stephanie's mother, Darlene, attended the ceremony. Seeing her mother again after so many years made Stephanie upset. The pain of being abandoned as a child still haunted her. Days passed. Everyone slowly returned to normal life. To refresh their minds, a family gathering was hosted at Howard's house. Everyone was in a cheerful mood. Laughter and chatter filled the air. Howard's youngest son, Bobby, was serving drinks. At one point, he accidentally dropped a glass on the table, and it shattered. Bobby quickly cleaned up all the pieces, but one shard of glass remained hidden inside a pile of ice cubes. Since ice and glass shards look very similar, he didn't notice. He used that same ice to prepare drinks for everyone, and the glass shard ended up in Marty's drink. Meanwhile, Stephanie was at her house, working at her desk. The wind outside reminded her of her grandmother's book. She picked it up and started flipping through. She remembered Irish's horrible death and shivered. As she opened the book, she found the same coin that the little boy had tried to throw from the rooftop of Skyview Tower. Now it was all starting to make sense. Everything Irish had written was coming true. Stephanie began flipping through the pages seriously. There, she found detailed entries describing how each survivor of the tower incident would eventually die. Just then, a book fell off the nearby shelf, and with it, a glass shard slid straight toward her. Stephanie froze. That was a clear warning. Something terrible was about to happen. Without wasting a second, she jumped in her car and raced toward Howard's house. Back at the party, everyone was still enjoying themselves. Marty still hadn't taken a sip from his glass yet. Nearby, Eric and Charlie were jumping on a trampoline. Howard joined them too, laughing, jumping, carefree. Marty stepped away from his drink for a moment to watch them. That small decision ended up saving his life. While they were all jumping, Darlene noticed something strange. Under the trampoline, there was a garden rake lying with its sharp blades pointing upward. If someone had fallen, it could have caused a deadly accident. Darlene quickly ran over and moved the rake, leaning it against the backyard fence. Just then, another small mishap occurred. Brenda accidentally knocked over a beer bottle. It fell right on the water timer for the garden. That triggered the water system. The pipes started filling up with pressure. These pipes were coiled and tucked inside a basket behind the fence. As water rushed in, the basket began to swell up and press against the wall. That's when Stephanie arrived. At first, she couldn't tell what was wrong. Meanwhile, Howard and the boys had stopped jumping and were walking back. Just as Marty walked back to pick up his drink, the wooden boards under his drink tray collapsed. The glass tumbled to the ground. The glass shard, still inside, slid right under Howard's foot. Unaware, Howard stepped directly onto the shard and screamed in pain. While that was happening, the swollen basket behind the fence pushed hard against the wall. The garden rake, which Darlene had leaned there earlier, fell right onto the lawnmower kept nearby. The rake's weight pressed the mower's button, switching it on. Instantly, the blades began spinning, and in the blink of an eye, the mower launched itself straight toward Howard. Before anyone could stop it, the spinning blades tore through his face, killing him on the spot. The accident happened so fast, everyone stood there in complete shock, frozen. After Fiona from Howard's side passed away, Stephen finally started digging seriously into the Irish book. From the book, he got a lead. This one seemed important. It had a family tree drawn inside. It showed how the family began with a couple. Then it tracked how many children they had, and how many children their children had. Stephen matched this to the family of Irish and Paul. That couple had 2 children, Howard and Darlene. Howard had 3 kids. His first child was Eric, second was Julia, and the third was Bobby. On the other side, Darlene had 2 children too. Her first child was Stephanie, and the second one was Charlie. Now, the family tree had one strange rule. Whoever was the oldest in the family would die first. It would go down the line, from the eldest to the youngest. A few days ago, Irish had died. Then Howard passed away. So, going by that pattern, the next to die should be Eric. Because among the remaining family members, Eric was the oldest. Stephen tried explaining all this to everyone, but nobody took him seriously. They all got irritated and walked away. Later that night, Eric went to a tattoo parlor. He wanted to get Dad tattooed on his hand in memory of his father. That's when something strange happened. A showpiece on the table fell down because of the fan's wind. It knocked over a few more items. One of them was a glass jar. This jar hit the ground and shattered. Eric started cleaning up the broken glass pieces. In that room, several long metal chains were hanging as part of the decoration. Suddenly, one chain came loose. It got caught in Eric's nose-piercing ring. The other end of the chain was still tangled with the fan. So when the fan pulled, it tugged hard on Eric's nose. In pain, Eric stood up on a chair to unhook it. While getting up, his hand hit the table lamp. The lamp fell down, right onto some spilled chemical, and it caught fire. Eric somehow managed to rip off the chain from his nose, but by then, the fire had already started to spread. The flames touched another chemical container, and boom, there was an explosion. When everyone heard about the accident, Stephanie and Charlie rushed to Eric's place to check on him. Surprisingly, they found him completely fine on the street just outside his house. Even after that huge explosion last night, Eric hadn't been hurt at all. He was annoyed while talking to Stephanie. He was walking backward while speaking, not realizing he was stepping into the street. Just then, a speeding car zoomed past him, barely missing him by an inch. Yet again, Eric had escaped. That morning, Eric's sister Julia had gone out for her usual walk. She was casually walking down the street. On one side of her, a garbage truck was parked, and on the other side, a group of boys were playing football. Suddenly, the football hit Julia right on the head. She lost her balance and fell into a garbage bin. Now, the truck had an automatic system installed, so the bin lifted up automatically and dumped Julia straight into the back of the garbage truck, into the pile of trash. Her siblings saw it and immediately ran towards the truck to save her. But by then, the truck had already started moving. They screamed, begging the driver to stop. But the driver had headphones in and was listening to music. He couldn't hear a thing. Stephanie somehow managed to climb onto the truck. She reached her hand inside, trying to pull Julia out. But right then, the garbage compactor inside the truck turned on. It began crushing all the trash inside. And along with it, Julia got crushed to death. It was horrifying. Even the hand that Stephanie was holding, that arm got pulled right off Julia's body. After witnessing this brutal scene, Stephanie went into a deep shock. That kind of death was unbearable for anyone. But after Julia's death, the rest of the family finally understood. Everything Irish and Stephen had been warning about was true. Still, one confusion remained. According to the family tree theory, someone else was supposed to die before Julia. Julia's death was supposed to come later. So why did Julia die before Eric? That's when Eric's mom, Brenda, came forward to clear the confusion. Brenda revealed that Eric isn't actually Howard's biological son. Before Howard, she was in a relationship with someone else. Eric is that man's son. She had kept this a secret all these years. And since Howard wasn't Eric's real father, the death curse tied to the family bloodline didn't apply to Eric. Hearing this shocking truth about his birth, Eric stormed off angrily. Still, now everyone was certain. Stephen's prediction was spot on. According to the death circle, each member was dying in turn, which meant next in line was Bobby, Howard's youngest son. Terrified, Bobby begged Stephen to find some way to save him. Stephen immediately opened Irish's book again. There, he found a name mentioned, JB. Apparently, JB knew something about cheating, death hearing that name. Darlene remembered. Her mother had once spoken about someone named JB. He worked at BD Private Hospital. Without wasting time, they set out to find him. They wanted Bobby to stay at home because the world outside was full of unpredictable death traps. No one could guess when death would strike. But Bobby was too scared to be left alone, so they took him along. On the way, Eric also joined them. They made sure Bobby was kept in maximum safety, taking every step with extreme caution. Finally, they reached the hospital and found JB revealed that he had been present at Skyview Tower the day of the incident. He was the boy in Stephanie's vision, the one Irish had saved at the end. That boy was JB. He said he was forever grateful to Irish for saving him, but death didn't forgive him either. He now had cancer and not much time left. They asked him, was there any way to escape death's curse? JB said there were two ways to cheat death. 1, kill someone. 2, die and come back. If a person killed someone else, they would inherit the remaining lifespan of the person they murdered. But none of them had the heart to kill anyone. So JB told them about the second way. If the victim died, but then was brought back to life, the curse would break. There had once been a girl named Kimberly Coleman. She experienced this same miracle. And a man named Leo was once on death's list too. He had died. But doctors, with modern technology, managed to revive him even after his heart had stopped. That's how he escaped death. After hearing this, everyone realized something. Kimberly had truly broken free from the curse of Death's circle. Stephen asked the obvious question. Then, why didn't Irish try this same method? JB replied, that method is extremely risky. It's like playing with death itself. It's one of the most dangerous things you could ever attempt. He added, the chances of survival through that method are extremely low. That's why no one dares to try it. Saying this, JB walked away. He didn't want to stay surrounded by talk of death anymore. He just wanted to live the last few days of his life in peace. Because to him, that's what life was truly about. Meanwhile, Stephen kept thinking, how could he save Bobby now? He wasn't ready to try JB's second method, but Eric, with his different mindset, wanted to take the risk and give it a shot. Without telling anyone, he took Bobby and slipped out. Eric had a plan. He knew Bobby was allergic to peanuts, so if Bobby ate peanuts, he'd suffer a severe allergic reaction. His throat would close up and he'd die. Then, at the last second, Eric would rush Bobby to the doctor and bring him back to life. That way, they could cheat death, and Bobby would be freed from the curse. Bobby was scared at first, but Eric reassured him. Eventually, Bobby agreed. At the hospital, they went to a vending machine. Eric selected a pack of peanut biscuits. The machine tried to drop it, but the pack got stuck inside. Frustrated, they shook the vending machine. They even tilted it a bit. Finally, the biscuit pack dropped out, but along with it, a metal spring came loose and got stuck near the front of the machine. After that, the two of them unknowingly entered the MRI room. Eric left Bobby inside and stepped out. He went to fetch a wheelchair so that they could rush Bobby to the emergency room quickly once the plan worked. While leaving, Eric slammed the door shut behind him. That loud sound caused a file sitting nearby to fall right onto the MRI machine's keyboard. It turned the machine on. Now, before anyone undergoes an MRI, all metal objects must be removed. Jewelry, keys, anything. Because the MRI uses powerful magnetic fields that pull metal objects with force. But neither Eric nor Bobby knew that. Soon, Eric returned with the wheelchair. He also brought along a shot of adrenaline to inject Bobby in case of a severe allergic reaction. After they finished talking, Bobby finally ate the peanut biscuit. Moments later, he began to swell up. His face, his eyes, his throat. He was struggling to breathe. He asked Eric for the injection, but Eric didn't give it to him. His plan was to let Bobby technically die and then bring him back to life. That was the only way to break the curse. But they didn't realize how dangerous it was to mess with death. As the MRI machine powered up, the magnetic field inside it intensified. All nearby metal objects started flying toward the machine. Bobby had multiple piercings on his body, earrings, nose rings, and more. They all began ripping out of his skin, flying toward the magnet. But the worst part was still coming. The wheelchair, which Eric had parked behind him, got pulled toward the MRI machine at high speed. It slammed into Eric with full force, crushing him against the machine. His body was torn apart in a second. Eric died instantly. Meanwhile, Bobby was rolling on the ground, barely breathing from the allergic reaction. He spotted the injection in Eric's lifeless hand. He crawled toward it, grabbed it, and injected himself just in time. Outside, at the reception desk, a nurse noticed something strange. All the metal objects in the building were being pulled toward the MRI room. She rushed to check. As soon as she opened the door, the spring that had earlier gotten stuck near the vending machine, still magnetized, shot through the air like a bullet and pierced straight through Bobby's skull. He died instantly. Just then, Stephanie and the others arrived, searching for them, but it was too late. The disaster had already happened. Now only 3 people from the family remained: Stephanie, Charlie, and their mother, Darlene. They had almost given up hope of survival. Nowhere in the world felt safe anymore. That's when Stephanie remembered Irish's house. Maybe that place could still protect them. After all, Irish had survived there for years, fighting against death every single day. They decided maybe the only way to survive now was to go into hiding, inside Irish's old home, forever. But Darlene said softly, "Not all of us need to stay there." Darlene decided she would go into hiding alone in Irish's old house, because as long as Darlene was alive, death couldn't touch Stephanie or Charlie. So the longer she stayed alive, the safer her children would be. Stephen and Charlie insisted on driving her to Irish's house. As they got into the car, Stephen held Irish's book upright against his chest. Because of that, a coin that was tucked inside the book slipped out and rolled onto the road. Stephen didn't notice and got into the car. The coin was picked up by an old woman nearby. She quietly kept it in her purse. Darlene was driving. They were already on the main road when suddenly a truck loaded with wooden logs swerved past them, just inches away from crashing. It was a close call. Darlene realized she wasn't able to drive safely in this condition, so she handed the wheel to Stephanie. Eventually, they reached Irish's old house. The main gate was locked. Stephanie didn't stop. She hit the accelerator and drove straight through the gate. But when they tried getting out of the car, Stephanie noticed her seatbelt was stuck. She couldn't unbuckle it. She told her mom, "Go inside quickly. As long as you're alive, we're safe too." Darlene and Charlie stepped out of the car. Charlie was walking his mom toward the house when a sudden accident happened. The electric wire from a poolside floodlight snapped and started throwing sparks everywhere. At the same time, a hanging potted plant fell from the ceiling and landed right on top of a gas cylinder. The cylinder started to leak gas. Just one spark from the wire touched the gas, and it triggered a massive explosion. Darlene was engulfed in flames. Charlie got trapped under a wooden wall panel, but thankfully, he wasn't injured. Darlene, still alive despite her burns, ran to help, saving Charlie from under the wreckage. But just then, the swimming pool above collapsed completely, and the entire structure crashed down onto Darlene, killing her instantly. Charlie rushed to Stephanie. The explosion had also hit Stephanie's car. Her vehicle had flipped into a nearby water reservoir. Stephanie was trapped inside, struggling in the water, fighting to survive. Charlie ran in and, using a knife, cut Stephanie's seatbelt and pulled her out. But by then, Stephanie had already inhaled a lot of water. She was unconscious, unresponsive. Charlie pressed down on her stomach, forcing the water out, and finally, Stephanie came back to life. Both siblings sat there, shaken but relieved. Stephanie had just returned from the brink of death. They assumed maybe this was it. Maybe Stephanie had now broken the death circle. Maybe now they were finally safe. Days passed peacefully. Stephen and Charlie returned to a normal life with their father. One day, they attended a public event. Coincidentally, that same old lady from before was there too. She was the one who had found the coin that had slipped from Irish's book. At a snack stall, she tried to buy some biscuits. As she pulled the coin from her purse, it slipped from her hand again. The coin rolled across the ground and got stuck between the railway tracks nearby. Unknowingly, this created a gap in the rail line, a critical fault. Back at the event, Stephanie tried to place a rose into Charlie's coat pocket. While doing so, a thorn pricked her hand. Blood dripped. That seemed like a bad omen. Stephanie's heart filled with dread. Later, a doctor came up to speak with Stephen. He had heard from Charlie that Stephanie had technically died and come back. But the doctor explained, technically, Stephanie never died. She only lost consciousness. Her heartbeat never stopped. The water was just temporarily blocking her breathing. Once it cleared, she came back naturally. Hearing this, both siblings were horrified. If Stephanie hadn't actually died, then the curse wasn't broken. It still hung over them. Right then, a train approached on the nearby tracks. As it reached the damaged part of the rail line, the missing section caused the train to derail. The derailed train didn't stop. It continued rolling off the tracks, heading straight towards Stephen and Charlie. They ran for their lives, but at the last second, a stack of wooden logs toppled over and crushed them both. And that was the end of the cursed bloodline.